Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Camp Verde girls basketball coach Mark Showers to break down the program's strong start to the season, how he adjusts his lineups during tournaments, and speak about the upcoming Yvonne Johnson Memorial Shootout. We'll then be joined by Payson football coach Bryan Burke. He'll speak about the team's performance this season, discuss the program's exciting group of returning players, and developing athletes for success after football. And when we return from break, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain Boys basketball coach Blair Hillig to talk about the team's early season tournament, what areas the team needs to improve on, and preview the upcoming game against Coronado. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Bradshaw Mountain High School boys basketball coach Blair Hillig. Coach Hillig, welcome onto the show.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're always happy to have you, Coach. The 2021 season is underway for the Bears. Coach, you guys start the season at the Valley Christian Boys Basketball Thanksgiving Tournament. You split all 4 games you played, 2 wins, 2 losses. Who stood out to you during those tournaments? How'd you like this? How'd you like how you guys performed in those tournaments as well? And who are some of the teams you saw?
The standouts were kind of the guys that have been around the program for a while. You know, Ben Wilder and Josue Luna. Those guys both got a ton of minutes last year, so they weren't surprised by the speed of the game, and so they were ready to go. But we had some youngsters step up. Mason Hunt, sophomore, he's going to do a good job for us, but he was ready to go in that tournament. But we did some good things, and we did some not so good things, and that's why it's so nice to have those tournaments, before we have any PowerPoint games. But we saw ALA Ironwood. That's a 3A school who's pretty good. They had some size, and so that was good for us to go against them. And then Chandler Prep, who's only a 2A school, but they really defended and well coached. We saw Sierra Linda, 5A school, and who was the other one? We saw one more, Fountain Hills. I should remember that one because that was our worst game of the tournament.
Oh, man.
But the cool thing is, though, they all presented a little bit different type of style for us to play against, which is great, so it gives us more experience to get ready for battle when it really counts.
And what a nice diverse group, Coach. You mentioned a 5A team, a 3A, a 2A, a lot of smaller schools being participating in these tournaments. Do you enjoy taking on kind of a diverse group of tournament goers, where these are obviously teams you're probably not going to see in the postseason, definitely not going to see in the regular season? But, how do you kind of approach these early season tournaments? Do you get to play with your rotation a little bit? Do you like to have some of the JV guys come up and get some time? How do you kind of approach the early season tournaments? I know you guys have a mid-season one. We'll talk about that. But, starting the season off, you mentioned it. How do you approach these kind of games?
Really, we kind of treat it like a scrimmage. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out, who's going to be our rotation guys. There's nothing set in that first tournament. That tournament will kind of tell us, or did tell us, a little bit about who was ready to go. It's tough for sophomores to go from the JV level, I think, to the varsity level, but that tournament helps. But it kind of lets me know as a coach, hey, they're not quite there yet. It doesn't mean they're not going to be there by the next tournament or by the end of the season. It just kind of gives us a good indication of where we're at right now. So, going into the season, honest to goodness, we had 17 names. I had 17 names of guys that I really thought could possibly play varsity and make an impact. We had one that's already broken a leg, and one decided not to play. So we're down to 15. We have one that's a transfer that won't be eligible for a few more games. So, we're down one more. So we played 14 guys, not exactly equal minutes, but everybody got an opportunity to do their thing. And it's a great experience. Yeah, it's great playing against different teams. Like you said, we're not going to see later on. Not a whole lot of pressure, just trying to get out there and get more comfortable with each other and to have some fun.
Yeah. You guys started off the regular season with a loss against Peoria. I want to ask you, Coach, what adjustments have you made since that game? Because after that loss to Peoria, you guys are pretty much have won every single game you played so far. I know the season just started, but what adjustments did you make after that Peoria game, and how have they kind of made a ripple effect through the team going forward this season?
It's interesting. Some of the adjustments we made were things that we've kind of noticed during that preseason tournament, and that we've tried to make some adjustments. And sometimes it's not just one little thing. Let's fix it here and everything's good. It takes some time for some things to get fixed, and kind of some harping on it and preaching on it and recoaching it. But actually, during the Peoria game itself, we got better. We were down 17-4 at the end of the first quarter, and from that point on, we actually outscored them. So I thought we made some adjustments during the game. Part of it is just understanding that for us to be successful, we really have to work hard on the defensive end. We can't be out hustled. In the first quarter, it was like we were standing still. So I think we got better there, and then from there, I think we did learn some valuable lessons. Our guys have played harder. We've had some practices that we were really good, and then we had some practices that we were really, really bad. So we've really tried to focus on the consistency at practice so that we can be consistent during our games.
Coach, before we hit some of the highlights on your roster, I did notice a couple football players finding their way to the basketball team this year, one of which Malachi Stevenson, who is an absolute specimen on the football field. I can't imagine what the kid does for you on basketball, but how do you kind of get these two-sport athletes prepared for the basketball season? Obviously, these guys are coming in some kind of shape, but not necessarily basketball shape. So what do you do to kind of get these guys prepared for the year?
Well, we have them all summer, which helps a lot because, Coach Young and I make our schedule so that there's no overlap in the summer. So the kids are able to do both things. But it certainly is an adjustment for them, and Coach did a great job this year getting them to the state playoffs so that we got them a little bit later. But it is an adjustment to come out to basketball, and we like Malachi was on the varsity team last year, so he knew a lot of what we were running and stuff. But there's some changes that we make, and it takes a little bit of time to get over that. And, Malachi is definitely going to help us this year, but he is having to make some adjustments to some changes that we've made, and get like you said, get into basketball shape. It's a little bit different than football shape. Yeah. But we work together, in the school with other coaches and other programs to try to make it as smooth as possible.
Talking about some of those standouts, of course, junior Ben Wilder, you've mentioned your leading scorer. He's playing well so far this season. Senior Nick Summit is right behind him in leading scorers for your team. How have they both embraced their roles on this team? And specifically more for Ben, how do you kind of further his development in these last 2 years that he's with the program?
Yeah, Ben's a good one. Last year as a sophomore, he was kind of our sixth man, but he had the ability to start for us, but it's hard for a sophomore sometimes. And I was more comfortable, and I think he was too, coming off the bench, kind of watching how the game was being played and then come in. But this year he's got obviously a much bigger role for us. He has to, we like the ball in his hands a lot, but also on the defensive end, he's really long and lengthy and can rebound, and he's guarded other teams' best players, which that's a huge progress, because as a sophomore, it's one of the things that him and I had to have some discussions about, his other end of the floor playing defense. So he's embraced that. And he really wants to help us on both ends. And, to do that, he's being harassed also on offense. So his conditioning has to improve from last year, which it has. It still needs to get better, but he's really doing a great job in that role.
I mean, it's got to be nice having that 6'4" junior for you, Coach. That long wingspan of Ben Wilder, I'm sure, helps out a whole lot defensively and offensively. Taking a look at some of the other players, you've been getting some great play from sophomore Mason Hunt. What can you say about his production so far? He's got 2 more years with the program. What do you think he can achieve once he gets to his junior and senior year? And are there any other of your underclassmen that are currently sitting on the roster, anybody else that you'd also like to say or shout out that's also having a great year so far?
Let's talk about Mason first. The sky's the limit. It really is. He reminds me of Ben a lot, kind of the same type of body. He's got a really good motor, kind of similar to Ben as a sophomore. It's like, hey, you got to work hard on the defensive end too. So his intensity will pick up as he gets kind of used to me and the system and what we're doing. But he can really be a good player. It's going to be exciting to watch him this year and the next couple of years, and his role will change obviously too, as he progresses. This year he started some games for us, and he certainly can start. He's got that kind of ability to start games for us. But you're going to see his role pick up, and yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. I don't know what the limit is or if there's a limit, but he's got a chance to be really special. And then, other guys that are sophomores on the team, we got Mauricio Hogwin, who really understands the game well. He hasn't got a ton of minutes yet, but he's a guy that I think you're going to hear his name a little bit more as the season goes. We got another football player, James Giggy, who's he's just dominating on the JV level right now. And I wanted to get some varsity minutes, but he's still kind of trying to get his feet wet, and but he's going to be fun to watch the next couple of years. So there's a lot of nice youngsters. Freshman team has some good players too. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, Coach, let's transition a little bit into those lower level programs. Of course, the freshman sophomore program and the JV program both playing well to start the season. Outside of Giggy, what else have you liked from these lower tier programs? I shouldn't say lower tier programs. I'm sorry. Your underclassmen programs. What have you liked from your JV and your freshman team so far?
What I like the most is those guys love to be in the gym. That's the neatest thing about it. Sean Stouter is another sophomore who's dressing with the JV and the varsity. He is a gym rat. Got 3 freshmen that are in my 7th hour basketball class because they're gym rats. They just want to play basketball all the time. So when you have that, you just get excited because you know that you're just going to keep on improving, and they're all quality kids, fun kids to be around, and that just makes it really special as a coach.
Again, we were speaking with Bradshaw Mountain High School boys basketball coach Blair Hillig. The 2021 season is kicked off for the Bears. They've got a game coming up on December 17th against Coronado High School, and then they've got a tournament following that. It is the Winter Hoops Shootout, at Cactus High School. That'll be taking place a little later this month. Coach, I want to ask you, you obviously carry a sophomore on the roster in Mason Hunt. There's a few other underclassmen as well on the roster. You talk about guys like Giggy who are still getting a lot of time at JV. You mentioned another player who's kind of splitting time. What goes into that deciding factor of, okay, this kid is ready for varsity, or maybe this kid needs a couple of years? And what are you kind of considering before you bring somebody up?
I want the kid to have some success, and sometimes their abilities can warrant success in practice situations, but I don't want to put them in a situation where they're not comfortable yet in an actual varsity game. It's just a little bit different. The pressure, I think, is a little bit more extreme than on the JV level. And, it takes time. And I don't want to put them in a situation where they don't want to be. And I know they get excited and they want to get those varsity minutes, but I want them to go at the JV level or freshman level, whatever it is, and go have fun and be the star, so to speak, and really enjoy that role. And then understand that when they do get the varsity minutes, the role is going to be a little bit different, but hopefully they're ready to handle that.
Coach, we're obviously getting close to the real thick of your schedule this season. Where are some areas you'd like to see this team improve in? And what would you say is the identity of this team, at least at this point in the year? I know we're still kind of starting the basketball season.
Yeah, it's interesting, Philip, when I told you we had a lot of guys that I thought could play varsity. So what I envisioned is, we're gonna sub in and out a lot, and we're gonna pressure and get up and down. And then that's kind of what we were trying to do before the preseason games, and we played those, and we weren't great at it. So we've kind of slowed down a little bit with that, and our focus has been on defense, it's kind of been our calling card for, since I've been coaching here. And we just take a lot of pride in our defensive end. So I think that's kind of still our mantra. We got to go defend, and we got to play at a pace that works for us. But as we progress, I would like to see us to be able to get more guys involved and get up and down the floor a little bit more. If you look at our scores, if the game's in the 50s, we got a chance to win it. If it's above that, then chances are we're going to be on the wrong end of it. So, I think that we can play at a faster pace. I just don't think we're quite there yet, but it is something because of the depth of our bench. It is something that I'd like to work on and get better at.
As I mentioned, the Bears have a game against Coronado High School on December 17th. Coach, what are you expecting from the Dons in that game?
Well, they had some talent last year in their guard position. They did lose their point guard, but they had some other guards that are back, and they have a couple nice-sized kids, 6'7", two of them. So wow. I think they're going to be a real good challenge for us. It's just like any other game. We got to be prepared, and hopefully that we're not thinking about Christmas vacation or anything else, because that's a tough time for kids. They're just getting off of finals, and you're dealing with teenage boys that have other things on their mind. So keeping them on track is sometimes difficult. But so I say it's nice to have a bench, because if you see somebody not having a whole lot of focus, somebody else is going to get their spot. So.
Yeah, there's always opportunity to be had on a high school basketball team. I'll tell you that.
That's for sure. So hopefully we can stay in the groove and keep our focus.
After that, Coach, of course, you head over to Cactus High School, as I mentioned it earlier, to compete in the Winter Hoop Shutout. This is obviously a bit more of like a mid-season, kind of getting to the start of the regular season tournament. But I'm curious, Coach, in those years where you've had those mid-season to late-season tournaments, as you get close to the start of the playoffs, does your philosophy and maybe your approach to these tournament games when they happen later in the year, does that change to something you're seeing this year where you're getting kind of tournaments at the beginning of the year? Do you kind of pull maybe some of your varsity kids for the playoffs, or, let a couple of the JV kids get a little bit more time in these tournament games? Where does your approach go from an early season tournament to when we get closer to the mid to late season tournaments?
Really, it's going to be a very similar approach to the beginning of the season. I really want to get guys involved again. So some kids that maybe haven't been getting the minutes on the varsity level at this point are going to get quite a bit at that time, just because we're going to need them, or at least you better be prepared. You better be prepared to need them, because you never know when you're going to have an injury or something else. And I believe in our guys. I really do. I believe those guys can do it. But at the same time, you got to give them as much experience as possible, so that they say, hey, I've been here before, when that opportunity comes. So, that's the way we're going to treat it. We're going to get those kids are going to get a lot of minutes, and, we're going to work on those things that we talked about earlier in the show. So I'm looking forward to it. And, you want to keep guys happy. If they're not getting minutes, but you're asking them to bust their tail at practice, sometimes that kind of goes south on you. So yeah, they've earned those minutes, so they're going to get them in that tournament.
Well, Coach Hillig, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about your program. I'm sure we'll touch base about mid to late season when you guys are getting ready for the playoffs. Best of luck going forward. Safe travels to and from your tournaments, and happy holidays as well.
Thank you. Same to you, Philip.
Thank you, sir. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Camp Verde girls basketball coach Mark Showers right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm joined now by Camp Verde High School girls basketball coach Mark Showers. Coach Showers, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's always great to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, Coach. The 2021 season is underway for the Camp Verde Cowboys. The season started off with a win against Glendale Prep, followed by going basically 3-2 in the PCDS Tournament Classic. Coach, just in general, before we kind of break down the tournament play, how have you liked the start of the season so far? What did you like from that tournament, and how do you feel about the season up until this point?
Well, if you'd asked me a month ago that we'd be sitting on a 6-2 record, I'd have said you're crazy. Last year we went 0-7 or 0-11 or something like that to start the season out, and the team isn't that much different than it was last year. So I had no idea that we'd be able to have this kind of success this early. As far as the tournament goes, we're always looking for something that's going to help us to get good competition. We want to be able to improve during the tournament. We want to give kids playing time. We want to look at offenses and defenses and different kinds of things to really give us a good foundation to prepare and move forward into the season. The PCD tournament, we've been there before, and it really is more at our kind of talent level at this point. And so we were able to get 5 quality games out of that tournament, which was exactly what we needed to do.
Coach, can we talk a little specifically about that tournament? I mean, how do you approach these early season tournaments? I know you'll be entering another one that you guys host a little bit later this month, which we'll talk about. But, how do you kind of approach those early season tournaments? Are you utilizing the same starting 5 you'll see during the regular season? Do you call up any JV players? Do you mess with the rotation a little bit, have some second stringers play alongside the first stringers? Or are you just trying to get girls some time at the varsity level just to get the season going?
Well, really, it's kind of an all of the above. Obviously, we're trying to see what kids can do. They're getting court time, which is valuable, for them to be able to improve. On top of that, we're challenged with all sorts of different types of offenses and defense from our opposition. And so we've got to be able to adjust, and we can see some different things that have to take place through those situations so that we can improve on before we get into region play after Christmas. On top of that, we're able to get some young kids some playing time to kind of see what they're able to do under pressure. So like I said, kind of an all of the above. To me, the preseason tournaments are huge in preparing us. Now, the Yvonne Johnson tournament, a little bit different. The Yvonne Johnson tournament was put together years ago as a bridge because we're off for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to get kids in and really give them quality practice time for 2 weeks. So to have a tournament within that 2-week period gives us an opportunity for good competition and good commitment from the kids that bridges the gap between the preseason and then the region season.
Well, Coach, I was going to ask you, how you kind of prepare for that holiday. I don't want to say, well, essentially that holiday break you just mentioned. These kids go off for winter break. Some stay here, some don't. And I was going to ask you what your plan usually is to sort of avoid that quote unquote, the holiday, sluggishness that comes from coming off of vacation. But it seems your answer is just let them keep playing, play as many games as we can, and keep them here as much as we can.
Yep, absolutely. Got to do it.
Well, Coach, taking a look at your team, right now the squad is led by senior Addie Herrera. She's averaging a little over 8 points a game this season. Coach, for her past 3 years, how have you seen her develop? What player has she become since entering the program at Camp Verde?
Well, her first couple of years, she was living in the shadows. She was Tana Decker's shadow, and so we weren't able to see her compete at a higher level when she was younger. And so she really had to start refining that last year, and it was difficult. She was thrown into that role as a floor leader, and she made a lot of mistakes. And she's really settled into more of a floor leader this year as a senior, which has been really nice to see. She handles the kids on the floor. She's able to make sure that kids get the ball when they need the ball. She plays great defense. She's starting to score a little bit more, which I'm real excited about. She has that ability. So she's a real important factor in our success early in this season.
Taking a look at the rest of the roster, of course, you carry some other seniors, McKenna Martin and Summer Bast. Coach, how have these seniors embraced their roles this season, and how much has their experience been relied on this year?
Well, we have to rely on their ability to step up and be a leader. That's first and foremost. McKenna has had to kind of break out of her shell and learn that she's got to mix it up with other big kids, and you can't be tentative. You've got to be able to go nose to nose. Summer Bass is one of the smartest kids I've had, and she's a blue collar worker. She does it all. She scores, she rebounds, she handles the ball, she plays defense. She has to play both post and guard at different times. So, and a player like that is key to the success of a team, because you have to have somebody that can do more than just one thing.
Right.
They've got to be able to transition into other areas, and she's able to do that. So again, from a leadership standpoint, them stepping up and taking on more responsibility has been key to early success.
Again, we were speaking with Camp Verde High School girls basketball coach Mark Showers. The season is underway for the Camp Verde Cowboys. Coach, I mentioned a couple of your seniors. You've also carried some juniors on the roster in Erica Graves and Deanna Aranzamendi. But you've also got a nice little collection of sophomores and freshmen on the roster as well. Coach, going into, I know we're just starting at the beginning of the season, but just kind of looking ahead a little bit, how excited are you about this underclassmen class, and how are you feeling about the senior class coming up next?
Well, my two juniors, Erica and Deanna's been involved with the program. This is her third year, and she just gets better every year. And she's another that I've seen some big jumps in leadership ability, and just her being comfortable on the court. So that's been a big plus for us. For Erica, she didn't play last year. She's a volleyball kid, and I talked her into playing this year, and she stepped in and really been able to score some points, get some rebounds, give McKenna a breather off the bench, and that's been helpful. Our younger kids, we have some athletes that haven't played a lot of basketball here recently. And so right now we're just trying to get them on the court so that they can improve. And with that improvement, they'll be able to take over these leadership roles in the future. Now, Erin Collins, she played this last year and was really strong for us, and she's come along very well. I'm extremely pleased with Erin and her improvement, and I think she's going to be a real strong factor for us moving forward.
You mentioned Erica Graves coming off of the volleyball court and stepping onto the basketball court this season, Coach. I mean, when you've got a transition player like that, who I'm not sure you can obviously kind of fill in her history with basketball, but speaking in terms of, a player stepping off one sport going into another for maybe the first time, or it's been a while since they've competed in basketball, how do you sort of ease that transition for somebody coming from one sport to another, specifically, obviously, Erica going from volleyball to basketball? I mean, how do you sort of make it a little easier for them?
Well, what you'd like to do is spend a lot of time on fundamentals, spend weeks and weeks and weeks on fundamentals and gradually kind of transition them in. But high school basketball isn't like that. You got 3 weeks and they got to be thrown in. So it's almost like you use a reverse education model. The education model is you work on the fundamentals, and then you do some build-up games and those kinds of things to work into your offenses and defense and competition. But because the season, the preseason is so short, instead, you have to throw them in and then work on things backward as you go through the season. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is Erica's a smart kid, and she's able to take that on and just improve as she goes. And the other part of that is we have to be patient. We can't depend on them to just come out and do it. It's a patient process that we have to follow.
Again, I know the season's still pretty new, Coach, but I'm curious, where's an area you would like to see this team improve in going forward? And what would you say is the identity of your team this year?
Well, this team has to get better at rebounding basketball, and they have to be able to make their layups. They're doing a great job of putting themselves in a position to score and can't buy a bucket underneath the basket. So that's been something that we're spending a lot of time in. I've taught them a brand new defense. So none of them have run this defense before. So it's been a slow process learning the defense and making improvements from that standpoint. we would like to make the playoffs. We didn't make the playoffs last year. We'd like to make the playoffs this year. And I think that would go a long way to helping our kids be excited. They're excited already. To win some of the games that they've won, they're pretty excited about what's going on. And so that helps breed success in the future.
Taking a look, Coach, your JV team able to get a win against Northland Prep to start off the season. I want to ask, throughout the summer, were you able to add a number of new players? Any new freshmen come in? How's the JV looking? Who are you looking to bring up next season? Just in general, Coach, how are things down at the lower levels this season?
Well, the JV has both sophomores and freshmen. And we have, right now, I have 4 kids that are kind of playing both ways.
Okay.
Felicia Valenzuela, Alyssa Wheeler, Alicia Perez, and Anaya Martinez. All 4 of those girls are kind of playing both ways. And, when you're able to get that kind of court time for those younger kids, that really hopefully helps them moving forward. Because we're limited. Our kids can only play 6 quarters a night. Now that we're in the 3A, when we're in the 2A, it was unlimited. 3A, we can only do 6 quarters a night. So we have to plan that so that the kids get the appropriate number of quarters. But those transition kids, they get more time than anybody else.
Well, yeah, they're playing at the full game at the JV level, and then maybe getting a few spot minutes at the varsity level. Yeah. So it's great. It's a great problem to have. You're seeing a lot of girls. These freshmen and sophomore, Coach, you mentioned you got a few on the varsity roster that are also on the JV roster. This is just preparing them for potentially next season where they take over some of those spots that your seniors are going to be leaving. You never know who transfers or who decides not to play next season. It's just great to have this collection of players who have this kind of talent going into next year. Yeah, no, definitely. You want to have a balance throughout your classes. If you have a good number of freshmen through seniors, then you're pretty good in moving forward. It's when you have one class that's really heavy and real light in another class, and then when that class leaves, you're in trouble. And really, well, Coach, I know you love another 2019 basketball class like you had. Oh, sure. I've had 3 or 4 of those over the years, and it's always fun to go on your little run and see what the kids can accomplish. In the small schools, we go in waves. Yeah. And so there may be another one of those in the future, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. You get any kind of, like you mentioned it, Coach, you had a few of those teams. Of course, I'm mentioning the 2019 Camp Verde Cowboys girls basketball team that, for those of you who are listening who aren't sure, who went all the way to the state championship that year. I think you guys were undefeated on the entire season as well. But that was a great class of players, Coach. I want to ask, obviously you've had a few of those classes come through. What kind of, when that starts to happen, are you just kind of looking around saying, oh man, we might have 3 or 4 girls who could really, really kind of build around, and we're getting a couple more players coming through. What kind of indication do you get to where, that freshman class is going to be the class, or that sophomore class is going to be the class that takes us to a state title? Or, not this year, but 2 years from now, we're going to have a bunch of freshmen that are going to be real good. What are you looking for? What kind of gives you that indication of like, man, there might be something special with this class coming up? Well, for me, 2 things come to mind. One is obviously talent. Right. You got to have talent to be able to compete. And the other one is commitment. When you have kids that are committed to the program and they're going to work hard in the off season to get better, and they kind of rally around each other, then you see the possibilities unfold. And we knew when this group was they were freshmen, that they had the potential. Now, the first 3 years, we saw some ups and downs with that group. And so we knew they had potential, but we didn't know whether we were going to be able to get there or not. Right. And as with other classes that I've had that had that kind of potential, you see it early and you go, okay, this class has the potential. Now, are we going to have all of these girls come out every year? Are we going to have some quit, or some going to move? Are they going to blow us off in the summertime? What's going to happen to be able to see whether they're going to put those 2 things, talent, commitment, together to be able to move up and compete at a high level. Again, we're speaking with Camp Verde High School girls basketball coach Mark Showers. Coach, we talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the show. You guys are getting ready to take on your next opponents, which are the Yvonne Johnson Memorial Shootout. Again, that's coming up a little bit later at the end of this month. Coach, first and foremost, I know you and I got a chance to talk a little bit about this tournament specifically. I know it means a lot to you. I was just curious if we could talk a little bit about your connection with Yvonne Johnson and just kind of how this tournament got started and what it's meant over these past few years that you guys have been able to hold this tournament.
Sure. So Yvonne played for me her sophomore year. It's my first year coaching girls here in Camp Verde, and 6'2" post player, a lot of raw talent, could jump really well. And she basically carried our team with some supporting cast members into the playoffs her sophomore year. We lost in the first round, but things look good in the future. And then she was killed in a car accident the summer after her sophomore year. And we decided we were going to start a tournament and call it the Yvonne Johnson Memorial Shootout. And so this is I think our 24th year of hosting this tournament. And I have a chance every year to talk about Yvonne and how special she was to the kids in the program and to me. We have her dad and her stepmom that still attend the tournament. In fact, their grandson now plays for the boys team, Devin James. So, I'm able to see them regularly. I went to school with her stepmom when I was in high school back in the day. So I have a close connection with the family.
Yeah. Coach, obviously a beautiful story regarding the makeup of this tournament, but I want to ask before we let you go, we got two more questions. First and foremost, when you're building this tournament, Camp Verde hosts this tournament, obviously, but Coach, when you're building this tournament, I mean, who are you looking for opponent wise? Are you looking for teams that you guys might see in the playoffs down the line? Are you just kind of throwing out hey, if anyone wants to come play? Or, I mean, how methodical are you when building the schedule? And an even better question, are you even the one who puts the schedule together? So I just want to ask, when you guys put this tournament together, what factors are you considering when dealing with the talent you want to play against?
Yeah, so I put the tournament together for 21 years. And then I had Dan Wall, who's our athletic director. He's been doing it the last 3. For me personally, it's whoever wants to come. Okay. Like I told you earlier, it's a bridge between pre-Christmas and post-Christmas. With that 2-week break, it's very difficult to get the kids engaged and get quality practices. So to have a tournament for a short period of time really bridges that gap and gives us a boost moving into the regular season.
Yeah. Coach, one last question for you before we let you go. Of course, Camp Verde makes the move from 2A to 3A in select sports. I think football was the only sport that stayed 2A. But I want to ask, Coach, we're 2 years in now. How are you feeling about the transition? What have you liked about the 3A? Are you happy the school made the jump? And just in general, how are you feeling about the team going forward now that they're competing out of the 3A instead of the 2A?
Well, the region is a really good place for us to be, the 2A North Central. There are schools that we have been involved with in the past in the 2A. And my first 10 years as the AD and girls basketball coach, we were in the 3A West. So we played Chino Valley and Wickenburg, River Valley, Parker. We played all these schools, in the past, Bourgade. So this is really nothing different. The difference from the way I see it is usually at the higher level. There's a higher level of play in 3A once you get to the top 10 schools in whatever sport you happen to be in. The regular season is very similar. There are probably less lower level teams in the 3A, so you're not going to go in and beat somebody 40 or 50 points or whatever. So there's a little bit less of that. So the region we're in is very familiar to us. We've known these people for a long, long time. And so the transition for us has been relatively harmless.
Again, I want to thank Camp Verde High School girls basketball coach Mark Showers for coming on the show. Coach, thank you very much for taking the time. Again, the Yvonne Johnson Memorial Shootout will be taking place at the end of this month at Camp Verde High School. Check out the Camp Verde High School website, the basketball team's Facebook page, the school's Facebook page. There will have specific information about that. But Coach Showers, best of luck on the season going forward. I appreciate your time, sir. As always, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Payson High School football coach Bryan Burke on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Off the bench. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt tax office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Payson High School football coach Brian Burke. Coach Burke, welcome onto the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, we're very happy to have you, Coach. First and foremost, congratulations on finishing the 2021 season. The Longhorns finished their season 6-4. They earned a number 13 rank in the 3A, earning them a first-round matchup with Yuma Catholic. Coach, can you take us through the playoff game against Yuma, and how did the season go for you just in general? What are your thoughts?
Like I said, all in all, we knew going in we had a young team coming back, and that we were going to be young in some spots, but we had a lot of great leadership going in this year, and a couple key returners that we knew were going to have big seasons. Connor Hatch was one who's a all-region kick returner for us. High-performance receiver, starting corner, and then Travis Christensen, a 4-year starter at linebacker. We knew that those guys were coming back. They're going to really help us, elevate our young guys and get them ready to play, but at the same time compete. We definitely were happy with production there. Going in the off-season or the Freedom Games, we had some success. We lost a really close one to Eastmark, which Eastmark turned out to be a pretty darn good team. They ended up the season, that was a tough one to lose early, especially in the fashion we did. We gave up, some touchdowns late in the game and lost really close to the end, which I think brought our kids closer together. And kind of got us prepared for our region games, and one thing that we understand, our kids understand, is that we historically have one of the tougher regions in the state, and that showed again this year. We had 5 of the 6 teams in the state, and you could argue Winslow could have probably should have made that could have made that top 16 as well. We definitely could have had potentially all 6 teams up in the top 16 and without being unreasonable. So we know it's a meat grinder, and above all else, even talent's one thing, but every one of those teams bring a certain level of physicality and black and blue, just real physical type football. So we know you got to kind of once we get past our Freedom Games, you kind of know, like, all right, well, whatever happened prior, it's in the past now, and we got to go week to week and earn it every week. So our kids knew that and had a great understanding of that, and approached it, took that on with a full head of steam. And we lost some games early in the region that were tough games or close games, and we lost some games that weren't as close, and our kids were able to put that behind them and go 1-0 every week. And that caused us to win some games late and earn a trip to playoffs, which as we know, in 3A this year wasn't easy to do. And there's some pretty dang good teams that didn't make the playoffs this year that could have, you argue, probably made playoffs in other conferences. So
there's some great football being played out in the 3A East for sure, Coach. You mentioned some of those strong teams. You already mentioned it. Most of that region represented in the playoffs this year. Your Payson Longhorns, of course, being one of those teams. But you mentioned your Freedom Games, Coach. I want to ask a little bit, if you do have any say in who you guys play out of region, how do you kind of decide what team you want your team to play against? And if you don't have any say in it, do you get an opportunity to maybe sit down with the athletic director and go, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Here's some of the names you're thinking. How does that process go? And how do you kind of decide some of those Freedom Games, Coach?
So in the past couple of years, and I think every year there's a slightly different format, but the last couple of years, the 3A East has had has earmarked a 3A North game, and that's something that we have to plan on playing a 3A North team. So that's one. Typically those are huge travel games for us, or vice versa, one or the other. So typically we don't want to travel all that crazy amount in freedom. As far as selection goes, one thing we have the luxury of doing, if we don't get really highly ranked teams early in a season, we know that we're going to see Snowflake, Round Valley, Show Low, Blue Ridge will get up there. Winslow is always in the top 15. So we're going to see highly ranked PowerPoint teams that we could, so if we don't have a necessarily super high, opponent ranking early in the season, we can get away with it. That being said, we don't want to go on the opposite side either and play really low ranked teams. And sometimes a crapshoot. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, this team we're expecting to be pretty good and a playoff caliber team. And, 1 or 2 injuries happen and it doesn't pan out for them. So, it really is. It's tough to do that, but for the most part, we have a decent say in it. I wouldn't say that we always get the schedule that we sought out for. So, but we do have a pretty good pens in hand for us, and we have a pretty good say for the most part.
Well, Coach, I know if you're not too if you want to pad up that schedule a little bit, of course, you got a couple 4A teams hanging out in the Yavapai County area or here in Northern Arizona. If you want to take your hand at Mingus or Coconino or Flagstaff, I'm sure they'd love the competition against Payson. But talking about some of your key contributors, Coach, you obviously mentioned Travis Christensen, who was not only a key contributor defensively but also offensively for you this season. Connor Hatch, another senior this year, Hunter Stanfeld, Kellen Mills, just to name a few of your seniors. Coach, I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts overall on this senior class and what these guys meant to the program this year.
Man, you named some pretty outstanding kids there that were outstanding players, but just better young men. And we have our banquet tonight. Tonight's kind of our last hoorah. We can say goodbye in the program to some of these guys, and those are going to be some tough conversations just because the commitment and the leadership those guys have given the last 4 years is just unparalleled. So, Hunter Stanfield is probably one of the highest motored kids that you'll ever watch in a football game, as far as he's playing defensive end on one side of the field, and he's chasing things down to the sideline on the opposite end, and just he does everything in between. So he's phenomenal to have in the program. Kellen Mills, a strong safety for us. He was kind of our Swiss Army knife on the defensive side. He kind of did a lot of things for us. We ran a lot of pressures, and we were able to disguise a lot of our coverages because his football IQ was so high. He was so in tune. So we were able to do some things where he'd be showing a blitz and then right before the snap, bail back and play cover 2 safety and make a play on the hash mark, which is, not too many guys are capable of doing. Yeah. But he was phenomenal for us this year. Zach Ludke is another one in 4 years, and he played free safety for us. In 4 years, I don't think he's missed an off-season weight training, an off-season workout. Nothing in 4 years. And so the commitment and drive that these guys shown, I'll never forget them for it. And more importantly, the success that we have down the future, which I believe are coming with this young group, I think is paved the way by them seeing a really solid group of seniors and providing that leadership. So,
Coach Burke, I want to ask, obviously you've been around the program for multiple years. You've been coaching high school football for a while. Does it get any easier when you say goodbye to another senior class? Does it at all get a little bit easier to kind of say bye to these guys? I know you got a little bit of an emotional attachment. Of course, you've been coaching some of these kids for 4+ years. But I want to ask, you see so many kids year in and year out. Does it get any easier?
It's I don't think it does.
I don't think so.
Because every year, you just build those relationships with the kids, and I truly think, to me, I make a big push that wins will come and go, but the relationships that we build, that's why we do it, and that's what, and our coaching staff believes in it. So, and I have these kids, in a unique schedule. I have them for football weights, a football weight training period. I have them for our enrichment class. I have them for weight. So some of these kids I see, 4 hours a day. Some of them I got TAs. Sometimes I see them 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I see them more often throughout the day than their own parents do.
Yeah.
So, you build quite a bit of a relationship with these guys, and it doesn't get easier. No, but it gets easier. It gets easier knowing that you prepared them for life. And that's the thing, we can win football games. And that's fun. That's fun. Right. And everybody loves those and be on the sideline for those, but you like to hear them get that job they're looking for. You like to see, I had an alumni, a kid that graduated a couple years ago, come in and was a substitute today for one of the PE teachers. And you just you love seeing that kind of stuff. You love seeing them succeed. You love seeing them become, get married and have kids and stuff. So that, to me, it gets tougher to say bye, or it doesn't get any easier saying bye, but it gets easier when you watch them grow and develop to high character young men. That's what we're striving for. Yeah,
that's perfect, Coach. I didn't think it got easier, but I just I'm just curious, if maybe throughout the years you've gotten a little softer on it, but no.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is my first year I've had all four. So this is my fourth year head coach. So all these seniors, I've had them for all 4 years. It's my first 4-year class. So
yeah,
first class I've had since they're freshmen.
Wow. So. That's insane, Coach. So you really got a connection to them. Those are your first year guys. Yeah. But you do return a solid team. We talked a little bit about it. You do return a solid team. Some of these guys who are coming back, your leading rusher, Caleb Marinelli, he's back next season. I apologize for botching his last name. Your leading receiver, Wyatt Ashton, he's back. Defensive standout, Dalton Stockton is also back next season. Coach, who are you excited to get back as well coming into next year? How are the lower levels looking, or anybody on the JV or freshman team you're excited about? Just what can we expect in the next season or two with some of these guys? And we'll talk about your quarterback situation in just a little bit.
Man, I'm excited for all those guys you just named. We had a really young offensive line this year. Our only senior on our starting offensive line was a kid, Dayton Morris, who's first year playing football this year, ended up being an honorable mention all region and just an absolute workhorse for us. But other than that, we returned a ton of sophomores and a ton of juniors going in for next year to have quality varsity experience. So I'm really excited for a great deep offense and defensive line that we're going to get a lot of production out of that really put in the work and we're about to see the fruits of some of that hard work today because we're squat maxing today. So that's an offensive line. Four favorite days of the year is the 4 quarters of squat testing. So we're really excited about our young group of offensive line, leading off with Sal Sellis, Caleb Ozier, and Jimmy Johnson. Those 3 hammers. They got some quality starts last year, and they started all season this year, and they really held our offense together. We got a couple of guys who will come in there and really compete for those starting spots. Really, we're probably 7-8 kids deep of guys that I would probably have started any other season. And, there's going to be some guys that are getting, that aren't getting starting reps that would have started probably any other season I've been here. So I'm really excited about that. Caleb Marinelli is about as smooth as they come as a running back, man. Man, he's smooth coming out of the backfield, catching the ball. He's a blocker. He gets the ball in his hands. He makes things happen. The kid's a phenomenal dancer. He does moonwalks at the homecoming dance.
Very nice.
So, he's somebody we're really excited about. Dalton Stockton, man, had he not gotten hurt last 2 games and he was out with concussion protocol, and he just he wasn't conditioned enough in the Yuma Catholic game, I don't think. But man, if he played those last 3 games with full speed, he's probably leading our team in tackles, and even with a guy like Travis on the team. And so he was having a great season. We got a lot of younger guys that are going to come in and step up. And, in our secondary, I'm really excited about Gabe Hilgendorf is a 2-year all-region corner for us. And every bit of 6'2", long, lanky kid. He can run with anybody. And guys that we're just ecstatic about. Offensively, Wyatt Ashton just put in so much work this year. And I told him he had a big time catch at the end of the Winslow game with 0.8 seconds left. And it was a huge moment. It was one of those things that you dream about as a wide receiver when you're a kid, that you want to be in that situation. And I told him right after the game, I told him when it happened that nobody deserved that more than him, because he's put in the work, and it was awesome to see, especially with him. So, but all in all, man, I mean, we got some great, outstanding kids coming back. I have 3 tight ends we can mention that will get in there and help us be a little bit versatile offensively. That also play D-line, Devontae Johnson, Cutter Landris, Kelton Taylor, some guys. I can go on and name off a bunch of guys that played lower levels this year that I'm really excited about. But it is a great group of kids coming back, and a very talented group of kids, but just an outstanding group of young men who put in work in the classroom. We just pulled up our GPA this quarter. I don't have it written, but it's we had a 3.29 team GPA this year, which is highest in program history. We had guys. We had I want to say every one of our varsity letter winners have put in at least 5 hours of community service, and we had, I want to say, 15 that put in 15 or higher, which is a lot. Things that we go out and do in our community, which is huge. So all around great young men. We're really excited about. And, one thing going forward for next year is we have a great 8th grade class that's going to be freshmen. I think for the first time since I've been here in 6, it's going to be my 7th year, we're going to have a standalone freshman football team. Wow. So we'll be able to play only freshmen, separate them, and have our JVs, because right now we kind of combine freshman and JV. So we'll have three separate levels, which we haven't done in a while. So our numbers are finally getting up to where we feel comfortable doing that. So,
well, Coach Burke, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show to give us an update on your football program. It sounds like things are definitely on the up and up for the Payson High School football team. I'd like to thank all the rest of my guests as well. Coach Blair Hillig of Bradshaw Mountain Basketball and Coach Mark Showers of Camp Verde Basketball. Coach Burke, thank you very much again for coming on. Best of luck going forward next season. I'm sure we'll touch base again, and happy holidays, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
That's this week's episode of Off the Bench. We'll see you next time.